Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 12, Supplemental 12, asterisk 12, B, beta, of Nexus Now, a Nexus Gaming Series podcast bringing you news, stories, and personalities from the NGS community, as well as the greater Heroes of the Storm universe, as well as sub-podcasts of itself. So we're here today, and we've got one topic on the board, but first let me check in with my co-hosts. First, Murda, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and wondering maybe we're starting to get into overdrive here to keep up with Nexus Edge, who's been killing it with multi-episodes per week. Nexus Now, we got some work to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You found my real reasoning for convincing you guys to get up on a Saturday morning to discuss the the balance notes is just because we have to beat Turd Herder.
Yeah. We can't let
Turd,
him
if you're
hurt all the
listening, shout
turds.
out. Turd, Wono, Ziltoid, and all the other guests. I know Jay's on Arth now. Weenus all helping out and doing big bits, but that team's just been amazing. So shout out to them.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're going to talk about the Blizzard Ask Me Anything, or AMA, and basically Blizzard has broken their silence, and this is the first big developer comment section where we're really getting a sign of what the dev team tasks and priorities are going to look like going forward now that they've been reduced to a shell of their former selves. There's a little special edition there because I did a lot of research, and Blizzard took notice. So I'm happy to talk about that research later on because it got a lot of attention on Reddit and elsewhere. And so who better than the Ghost himself?
Okay, diving in, overall thoughts on the AMA, and then we can go into like specific things that they've talked about. But overall, what was your guys' feelings coming out of, I think it was Wednesday? Yes, it was Wednesday, 3 o'clock.
I think the sentiment from the developers was pretty positive overall. It seemed like they were really excited to be able to do a lot of these things. They revealed a little bit of information in a few topics, and overall, I think we're just trying to finally say things that they've been wanting to say over the past few months that they haven't really had opportunity to do so yet.
Yeah, I think if I had to sum it up in a sentence, it would be fair enough. Like there's so many things that they've put out, and like everyone wants a million different things from this dev team. There's still a lot to do on the game, you know, to reach a point where the players think like it's complete, or you know, it has kind of reached its peak, and they just don't have the manpower to do everything. So they got to
prioritize.
Yeah, they've got to prioritize what they can do, and you know, it's a little frustrating. I think a lot of people are super frustrated that a lot of this stuff wasn't already done when they had a full crew. But now that they're in long-term sustainability mode, so to speak, there's a limit to what they can do. But I do like the fact that the devs are excited about having the freedom to do more experiments with, you know, balance, etc. now that they don't have to worry about a paid professional league.
Yeah, no, I agree. It did sound optimistic, and you know, this along with the content updates are very, very much needed to ease at least some of my concerns. It was a bit of a mixed bag though, because like what Ghost was saying, like everybody kind of wants their own specific thing. They each have their own high priority. Like you have to fix AI. Like AI is the most important thing to the game. Or for like Ghost and I, it would be like you have to fix QM because like QM is the most important thing to sustaining this game, and others it would be ranked and whatnot. So it is a bit of a mixed bag because they do have limited resources. But they never really drew attention to that, for obvious reasons, because it would be, you know, not a great look. But, you know, I feel it's not misleading, but maybe it is a little bit of wishful thinking to announce all of these things and say, like, long-term, a party finder is in the works. Like, what are the actual odds? Give me, like, the actual odds that we'll ever see a party finder. It's like, I wouldn't give much better than 50-50 odds on it.
I mean, with the party finder specifically, I think they they kind of hedged it a little bit and said that's a neat idea.
Yeah, and part of it for me is in the past two BlizzCons, specifically 2017, 2018, both of which I actually attended. I sat there in the audience during those developer sessions and sat and listened to all these exciting things on their roadmaps. And sadly, we're now looking at this AMA and we're finding things like clans and the API and some more changes to the matchmaking formula, things like that have been discussed in the past. Kind of feel like they've been thrown on the back burner or tossed out almost completely.
So AI changes, I think everyone agrees that they were just kind of a mess and we don't know how they broke them. But to be honest, I didn't actually notice them because the AI is so bad in the first place. So I won't notice when they revert them to quote unquote fixed because they're so bad. This is another thing, by the way, that 2 years ago they made, I'm going to post it. They made a blog post and like a long form out post about how they were improving AI and that they were machine learning their AI to be better than players and that they'd be actually responsive, and that has gone absolutely nowhere. And in fact, AI has probably gotten worse over the years.
I'd agree. And I think they had a lot of really ambitious projects that the team just wasn't able to get through. Speaking as a software developer, I think it speaks to difficulties maybe in communication. If I had to guess, I would say within the team, communication is very dysfunctional, so to speak, or maybe there's a lot of different voices that have a lot of different ideas. But like something like performance-based matchmaking suffers from the same thing. They didn't really test it as much as they needed to. Same thing with the AI. It's not as you know, they put a new thing together and they didn't give it the kind of Blizzard polish, quote unquote, that it needs. Like to get technical kind of quick, like there's this thing called Conway's Law, which says that any software developed by a team will mirror their internal communication. And I think Heroes of the Storm has been a victim of that.
No, that sounds accurate. Murda, anything else you gotta talk? We should probably head through because we do want to talk about Ghostdunk's stuff eventually. So.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start hitting some of these items in the AMA that are interesting to us. So, like some of it that kind of hits for me, we're talking about our ranked queues, and this is a pretty high priority near term item for Blizz. Bringing the Hero League and the Team League queues into be the same thing. I hit.
By the way, 5 hours yesterday. I was so proud of myself. It was 10:30 to about 3:30 was my my queue time.
Oh my god!
And ranked. I'm master 1000. Oh, and by the way, I was decaying. That was the only reason why I was gonna play a ranked game. Is because my MMR and my ranked was decaying. And so I needed to play a game to stop it. And I eventually got into a game and I won. But oof, it's tough. It is a tough life. And so like on the one hand, I am kind of excited for the Hero League Team League merging, and they're gonna do a preseason, which is like fantastic because I think I am always pro preseason. And people don't know this, but I think I can leak this. When doing talks for both this and last season, I was always under the impression that we should have a preseason in NGS because it'll allow teams that we, think maybe are too good or too not don't meet the expectations of a division can show themselves against a few games, and if our opinions change on them, we can adjust them before the regular season. So I think a preseason is fantastic because it lets you test out all the bugs and make changes. The problem with it being, and this will reduce queue times and etc. The problem with it is that, again, Team League is a complete and utter mess right now. The rankings mean nothing. If you tell me you are Grandmaster number 5, I'm just going to consider you a silver player until you prove me otherwise, because it just means absolutely nothing. And so and they said, what did they say in the AMA? We can get into the weeds, that they are going to take the highest MMR from both, and that is going to be your ranking.
They also said they were going to normalize it, kind of like they do with the soft resets during the season.
Yeah, I think that's
in between.
Smart. And back to it, I think a lot of people just never have switched over to Team League. They had that Hero League rating, and then everyone started playing Team League, and they were still back in Silver. So a lot of those complaints from Master players, and maybe now they can't even find queues to try to grind up in Team League. So I think the decision point there makes sense.
As for generating a player's MMR, we plan on taking the highest rank mode, Hero or Team League, which is different from what they originally said. They originally said like a month or two, or I think maybe back at BlizzCon, that they were going to like combine them. So this is at least a better decision, I suppose. MMR from your profile, normalizing and then clamping it in order to seed the new league and with a good initial distribution of skill levels for all players. Does normalizing and then clamping it in order to seed the new league with a good initial distribution of skill levels for all players, do those words in that order mean anything to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I
elaborate, Ghost.
Explain that. Explain that, because I'm not getting it.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what they mean by clamping, but normalizing is going to be similar to what they do during in between seasons, where it's kind of a soft reset. It's what you can see it happen in hot slugs. Basically, they find the average MMR in the smack dab middle of where everyone's at, and then they just push everyone at the edges towards the center. So if you're a little bit off center, you'll go a little tiny bit towards the center. If you're
how many standard deviations do you think they're gonna pull people in?
I don't know, man.
I mean, you're the stats
Hot
guy.
Hot Slugs doesn't do that anymore. Hot Slugs doesn't do that anymore. Where you lose 200 points, like they don't do that anymore.
I mean, they were doing it for every season, and it was supposed to mimic what Blizzard was doing with their own MMR system. I don't know what they mean by clamping. My guess is that after they do the normalizing, they will say, okay, nobody above plat or nobody above 2,500 MMR or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if clamping is just kind of like saying like, here's where our like new league rating marks will be at, and kind of fitting people in there. Because that's the other curious part about the MMR system is how they're going to implement it. Are they going to make the MMR system be the new de facto league rating? Like instead of seeing diamond, you're just going to see your MMR, or maybe a specific MMR bracket for the diamond league. How they implement that, I think it could be really interesting and might really make or break the positivity that this change would bring.
I think it's the point of the preseason.
Yeah.
They better. I mean, that's what it's for. If we see them go through the preseason and we clearly see that things are wrong and they don't address them, then like that's a big flashing warning sign that things are not all good. We can take that directly into visible MMR. I think you two were a bit more optimistic that we would get it, and I was a bit more pessimistic. Because they've said in the past that this is coming. They said at BlizzCon that this is something that is definitely happening, and then we get to the AMA, and let's see if we can get like the wording quite right.
The impression I got from it, and I know you're looking it up still.
It's a maybe. Yeah,
it was like we want to do it, but we don't know. Like a lot of people in the team have brought up different opinions on it, like maybe yes, maybe no. And I think maybe the developers that were answering the question before were not the developers that are like, no way, you can't do that.
No. You can't do that. You can't have developers go out on the BlizzCon stage or at a dev panel and say something is definitely happening, and then like 5 months down the line, like some different developers say like, oh, I don't know what that was crazy talk. And it's like, yeah, maybe priorities change, and you have to say like, oh, we can't do it. And it's like, okay, well, it's upsetting, but at least you're being honest. But it's like, I can't go out and speak for NGS and say like, hey, we are going to have every team winner is going to get a trophy the size of Dwayne the Rock Johnson next season.
Oh,
and that would not be okay, because I would speak for the league. I am in that position.
To be fair, when they talked about MMR in the past, they've said this is something we'd like to do.
I'm thinking specifically 2018 BlizzCon developer panel. I remember seeing that on the roadmap of this is coming out. That this is like a quote unquote guaranteed thing we're going to be giving you.
Yeah, I think it had moved from the stage of something that would be nice to do to something that was actually happening, and maybe it got affected by the changes in December, but this new question now, again, I'm trying to find it. Visible MMR. Okay.
Well, my concern is like maybe their like thoughts are changing on it. Like maybe some of these developers are bringing up good ideas internally about why it's a bad decision to show MMR.
Why is it a bad idea? Let's theory craft this, because it says right here, I am leaning towards it personally, but I have a very intelligent group of developers that are cautioning it, and while we are openly considering it, we still need time to discuss the pros and cons a bit more in depth internally. So they're not even in the planning stages. They're in the deciding whether or not to do it stages.
Jax, if I'm playing full devil's advocate,
yeah, you
that is signaling to me that they have concerns with what that MMR is showing themselves internally. They're not confident that the MMR system that we've been using this whole time is even accurate or fluctuates properly from game to game. And I think if they're displaying what that MMR is, that maybe it would make people think like it just is a horrible metric. But we're going to talk later on about Ghost's blog posts, and I think what we learned there is a little different than that opinion.
Yeah, I think that's getting off into conspiracy theory land. MMR in general, like Blizzard has millions of games at their fingertips that they can calculate. You just look at, it's MMR is just group-based ELO. And ELO's not a difficult system, and it's sort of a measure of how often do you win, and do you win more against people who win more, etc. And like it's a pretty basic mathematical formula. There are ways to tweak it, and there are ways to make it better. And it's very difficult though to prove that your MMR system actually works compared to everybody else. I don't think they're looking at it and saying, oh, this is terrible. Because they've said that, they're pretty confident that when they make a match together, that their confidence level that it's going to be a 50-50 chance for both teams to win is pretty strong.
Well, Ghost, let me pose you a question then. If the MMR ratings for everybody or for most people are accurate and they work, and it wouldn't be crazy hard to implement in terms of just like removing that from a visual graphical perspective, like removing the rank and just saying that, why don't they do it? Why do they have reservations? Theory craft.
I can answer that. I can speak for the dev team, and they've brought up there's 3 big arguments against doing it, and I'm not even sure that the devs have brought up the third one, but the first one is, how do we display it into the user that in a way that makes sense? So their worry is they put up a number that says your MMR is 36. Well, 36 what? Like, who knows? Like, what does that number mean? And the truth is that number only means anything when you compare it to other players. It's like, well, this player's 40, so they're 4 better. And their concern is that the number's not going to mean anything to the average user who isn't hardcore into hot slogs and everything like that.
I call baloney on that for one reason. It's that Overwatch does it. And Overwatch
Okay, I was just about to say this, Jax. You play Overwatch, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us about the newest ranked update where they started showing MMR, because we probably have some listeners that don't play Overwatch.
Okay, well, I don't play ranked like in terms of like very, very recently, but so I don't know like this change that you're referring to, but up until now they've had a system which is basically an MMR system in all but name, where they have 4,000 points, okay, and you can lie on a spectrum from 0 to 4,000, and actually doesn't have a cap. You can keep going, but they say 0 to 1,000 is bronze. I might get the numbers exactly wrong. 1,000 to 1,500 is silver. 1,500 to 2,000 is gold, etc. And if you are 1725, it shows a graphic of you are silver, or you're gold, or you're silver right now, and this is your progress to the next league. And you earn points by winning games, and you lose points by losing games. And so everyone that I've talked to like says, no, this is a fine system. It used to not be as great because it used to have sort of a hot system, and they changed it to be more like this. And everyone I've talked to says it's much nicer. So I don't think there's a problem with it. Everybody knows, oh, I'm diamond. I'm diamond 2800.
And to further extrapolate, we also see an MMR system in StarCraft 2 as well, and the players there also love it. So why not here in Heroes of the Storm? Why can't we make that leap with our developers?
Yeah, I think the argument that they've made for this point number one has not been that we can't do it. It's that we have to sit here and think about what the way that makes the most sense is. Like,
okay, well, that's like a slow bump, but that's not like an inhibiting force. So that's probably not what they're talking about in terms of cautioning it and being very reserved about it. So get on to your second and third point. See what
I mean, like I'm going to bring up like a couple differences. Like in Overwatch ranked though, like do you get less points the more you play?
No.
Yeah, that's not an MMR. Like MMR slows down, and like when you first start, you get huge swings of MMR because the system is uncertain about your skill.
That's what. Yeah, no, then yes, you do have it. I thought you were talking about like as the levels get higher, you don't gain less points. But no, once it becomes more certain about your level, it becomes much harder to climb. So like I'm diamond right now, and if I win a game, I'll go up something like 50 points. But there are grandmasters that only go up about like 10 points with a win. Because the system is much more certain, because they play a lot more games and I don't. So that's how it works.
Okay, that sounds more like an MMR. And the issue with Heroes of the Storm is that when they were doing ranked, it's like, well, why is this number different than my ranked points, et cetera. And like, so I'm sure there's a lot of internal arguing about the best way to represent MMR to players. The second thing, and this is the big one, is that they feel like if they show MMR, it'll feel like a ladder. And instead of being something that is an accurate number that you shouldn't care about improving if unless you're really trying to try hard and get better at the game, that people will get frustrated if they keep winning and it's like the number's not going up very much, and they'll try to be grinding that, and they'll get frustrated when they lose because they're not actually getting better. So in their mind, they don't want to have a system where people feel like they have to improve this number the more they play, and if they don't improve this number, they're failing at the video game.
Well, that's the exact system that we have right now. So I don't think that it would be much of a detriment. If I don't play games, then my rank will decay, despite the fact that we have 5-hour queues. So, and to speak that it's not a grind, it's a grind now. If you're Diamond 3 and you want to get up to Master, you have to do 3 sets of promo games. You have to do, you might lose your promo games. You might not, you might be just short of enough points to miss the promo games altogether. So I would argue it's grindier now. It's more of a ladder right now, and that progress doesn't really mean anything right now. I know, like, changing from Diamond 2 to Diamond 3 is a bit of a confidence boost. It's like, hey, I bumped up a level, but it's still like one rung of a ladder.
Let's kind of transition this over, because we've spent a lot of time here on the MMR, but kind of leaning now over towards Team League group restrictions, which is sort of along the same lines of, we have these diamond or higher players queuing up currently with bronze, silver players trying to smurf their way up to the Grandmaster leaderboards. They're going to start restricting it, making it so if you're more than 2 leagues below the highest member of your party, your league will not be in consideration during matchmaking. And I think this is a step in the right direction. What are your thoughts, guys?
Love it.
Fun fact, we had this 2 years ago and they removed it because nobody played Team League. So just fun fact. Yeah, no, it needs to happen. It needs to be stricter, to be honest, but I don't know if there's the player base for it. I don't know how much I will play ranked if they combine the queues. I might just do it for an exhibition purpose, but I don't know. Maybe it'll be more popular, but if they keep a lot of the same systems, I don't. And
well,
MMRs.
Let's talk about
I don't
this
know.
from the eyes of an NGS player. So
yes,
you're with your team.
To.
Yeah, you're with your team. Your 5 players, maybe not in the same rank. Ghost, give us your thoughts on kind of how that might play out here.
I think solo queue and playing in competitive are actually two different skills. So if you're on an NGS team, you're working that competitive muscle where you play as a team, you're on comms, and you're not having to solo queue and basically out mechanic everybody. You're working with a team that can macro, and you've got a shot caller helping you out. I think it's going to make all NGS teams stronger. Speaking personally, my team, when we queue up, sometimes we go against some players and it's like we just stomp them. And it's like, well, we all got on to practice and we didn't learn anything. And I think it's going to give a lot more competitive matches for NGS teams that use Team League to practice.
Awesome. I'm stoked for it personally because I have some friends that we like playing games together. Sometimes I'll hop in. We'll kind of get like some lower quality. I'm not a master player, okay? I don't know you guys at home if you don't know me. I've played the game for a while. I'm like legitimately like a platinum player. And sometimes I'm playing with my diamond, master, or higher players, and am I contributing to giving them easier games? And then sometimes it's me just jumping in there and running at a wall and dying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perpetually gold. Like for some reason, I can't rank up out of gold by myself. I'm not sure what the issue is, but I found teammates that will bring me on their NGS team at higher levels than gold, and I feel like I do pretty good. But when I'm in Team League, I would rather play into a diamond or master player, especially because I play off lane. I want to lane against somebody that knows what they're doing, because frankly, a lot of people who aren't in NGS, who are plat or are gold, have zero idea what laning is even about.
Yes,
which is disconcerting considering like plat is like 75th percentile. So oof.
I think it's less than that actually. Plat, like I forget how much it is, but plat in Hero League, I forget. Dang, I'm
pretty sure master is like 1%, and then like
oh no, you're right,
like
you're right,
10-15%, and then like the plat cutoff is like 80.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, no, it would be a good change, and I hope they don't go back on it after 2 weeks like they did the first time. And I don't know how they look at what's happening with all the Smurfs. And someone asked the question, GGG is the number one player in Team League with a 93% win rate because she just plays with 4 bronze Smurfs. Like, there in no way is that a system that has any credibility. And so I'm glad they are doing this, but I don't think it changes much. For parties of 5, you can still rank with bronzes, and it takes it from the highest player MMR, but that doesn't stop smurfing. That just says like, oh, you all need to be bronze 5s and just rank up that way.
I suppose, but what's going to happen is that eventually, as you rank up, when you get to the top, you will be playing against the top players, as opposed to the point of one grandmaster playing with the bronze players is that it takes their bronze MMR into account. So if you start with 5 bronzes, you will get really easy games, but you won't get very high.
Yeah, no. But it's just they ruin the games for everybody up until that point that they get to the high level.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like, why would you want to do that?
Well, they're Smurfs. That's what they want to do. I mean, the charitable.
I mean, the point
excuse,
of
they just want to like pub smash. Is that what
honestly,
you're saying, Jax?
Kind of. I mean, the charitable answer would be that the queue times are too long at their real level, which is like diamond low master, and so they want faster queue times. The uncharitable example is they're doing it because they think it's funsies and they like to feel good about themselves when they stomp people into the ground.
2 completely different paradigms, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, but not mutually exclusive. You can feel like the queue times are too long, and you would like to smash some.
Well,
silver
in the case of a team like this example you shared with the 1 player grandmaster and the 4 bronzes, the 4 bronze players, they're not technically getting anything out of it. So those 4 players are doing it for fun, whereas the 5th player who's getting the rank points for grandmaster, they're doing it for like the grandmaster points.
Well, they're doing it for fun, but also they get to smash silver people. So, how about we move on to something that I think Ghost and I will find a lot more interesting? Question: do you think it could be useful to have role icons near our names in draft to show what we are willing to pick during draft? and they said long speech, but it basically comes down to they are thinking, or are they thinking of, with the upcoming ranked mode update, they're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
You will be able to select your primary and secondary preferred roles on the ranked screen. Now, people who have not played League will probably find this a bit, they can't wrap their heads around it, but in League, you specify before you even queue up what roles is your primary and what is your secondary, and the matchmaker will take that into account and try to match you to your preferred rank.
And
right.
Let me jump in right here. Talking about League, I've recently started dabbling in League, and the system there, having this primary and secondary choice for your role, is amazing. I love it. So every single time, if I want to play Jax, which is one of the heroes I've enjoyed playing in my early days of League, top or jungle, and I can choose my two, and I'm always gonna be able to play my Jax. Yeah. Unless he gets banned.
95% of the time, you will get one of those two roles. If you play support, then you are pretty much guaranteed to get your role, your primary. I've only not hit support in probably 100 games, probably like 3. So, yeah, no, it's
fantastic.
This would be a great change.
I like it in theory. The problem I have is that I don't know that Blizzard knows what the roles in Heroes of the Storm are.
Of course, and that can bring us into like later topics where they're still planning on bringing out this role rework, which works okay, but if someone selects just like Flex, like the queue times are on Flex as a role are just going to be incredibly long. Or what the Lost Vikings are classified as a support. So if you say you're going to play a support and the role pre-select, that could mean you want to play Medivh, or you could play Lost Vikings, and those two completely different play styles. So yeah, no, it is going to be a bit confusing.
Let me give you this. Like, let's say I want to play Murky, and I'm planning
what
on.
Is he? Is he a melee assassin?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is he a bruiser?
Ooh,
like what?
He's not a melee assassin.
He's classified as melee assassin, I thought.
He will be classified as melee assassin.
Let me look at what I would do with Murky. Let's say I want to go in and I want to just proxy waves, and that's how I'm gonna play this game. What role do I queue up as? They're trying to have it both ways, where it's like Heroes of the Storm is a crazy fun game where anything goes, and you can experiment to your heart's content.
And we're not gonna tell you what the meta is. You just figure it out on yourself, unless we don't like that meta, in which case we'll nerf supports.
Right.
I completely agree.
I mean, it's like Heroes of the Storm. I think you would have to queue up as Flex, because the way the Heroes of the Storm works at a competitive level is you've got a tank, you've got a support, you've got a ranged
assassin.
You've got a sustained damage assassin, a burst damage assassin.
I don't think you need distinction.
Okay, sorry. You've got at least usually one ranged, but it can sometimes be melee.
You need one range. You can't get away with unless it's a cheese comp, which you don't balance around. You need a ranged, and so this leaves open the last few for either can be ranged assassin, off lane, or if we're going by their roles, it can be ranged assassin, it can be support, or it can be melee assassin. I think if we can get into the Call of the Nexus in a bit, I think if they implement this back in QM, those last 2 slots are going to be filled with a lot of flexes and a lot of specialists.
Well, here's my concern. If you're queuing, say, in a group of 5 in a system that requires you to choose a primary and secondary, and it's going to look at what your team of 5 chosen, I'd assume would try to make sure everything's chosen or not.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
In League, you can't, everyone can't just pick, I prefer bot lane. They'd be like, hey,
so what
you need to swatch off.
What happens in that case where this team of 5 has intents to run something like a Zool main tank comp? Will they have even an opportunity to do that in this new system?
Depends on how they implement it. It really does.
Well, if it's anything like League, go ahead.
Oh no, that was just what I was gonna say. In League, you can have a mage support or you can have a tank support, but it really doesn't matter too much in the overall how you're going to win. But they're both classified as supports. Well, you can't classify Zool as a tank. In really no universe can you classify him as a tank. He's a melee assassin. You can just play him as a tank because of some of his inbuilt characteristics. I don't know. I would take this stage of, screw the cheese. You're gonna have to have a tank. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is like when you queue by role, the nice thing about role queuing is that like you say this is my job in this game. It doesn't matter what character you do it with in League, because like if like my job is to be an ADC, I could pick somebody that sucks at auto attacking, even though I'm supposed to be the auto attack damage carry, which is what ADC stands for.
But you can't do that in HOTS. You really just can't.
Like, well, in Heroes of the Storm, like, if you queue up as a role and you say my role is tank and you want to play Zul tank, you're still doing the same job. You're still doing everything a tank does, which is initiate. You're getting vision. You're absorbing.
But let me postulate this. You queue up you say your priority is tank, and you solo queue into the ranked, okay? And you say, I want to play tank, and you hover Zul. The game lets you hover Zul like it would in League of Legends. Your team now has a Zul main tank, and nobody else is like prioritized like going as a tank, because they assumed that the matchmaker would pair them with someone who actually wanted to play tank. And now you have 4 people who did not want to play with a Zul main tank, and now have to build around that if they want to have a chance at winning now.
I mean, it's the same in League, to be honest.
I mean, it is, but again, the case in League is that like anybody can build into anything that you want. You can go Lulu tank if you want, because you can build items that give you a lot of health. With the case of Zul, he is not a tank unless he has a team properly supporting him. That is the truth.
I would disagree and say that League is kind of the same way. If you want to win, there are certain characters you cannot play in certain roles.
Yeah,
like,
there are a
team supports
few
you.
Exceptions, but you can build items in specific roles. And again, you don't need a tank in League. You need a tank in HOTS.
Yeah, but like you do need an auto attack damage carry.
Yeah.
Like it's if I pick Ivern as my auto attack damage carry, it's not going to work.
No, not necessarily. But again, League is kind of like 4 different games going on at once, because it's essentially each individual lane, whereas in HOTS, it's all revolving around the 4-man. And if you have a Zul main tank, I don't see how that doesn't invite trouble, because of the nature of it.
It always invites trouble if you're trying to solo queue into it, because it is a strategy that does require your team to do something. I think in League, you can think of strategies that do require your team to play in a certain way. It's just maybe not character based. So if I want a Zul tank, I need to get my team on board. If I want to juice pirates, I got to get my team on board.
My thing is just like, it's tough because heroes and HOTS, like Jaina can't build into tank. Jaina cannot build tank items because she doesn't have anything in her kit that would allow that. Whereas something like, I'm trying to think of an example in League, Annie can build tank. Annie is a mage caster, does similar-ish things to Jaina. She can build tank because she has the access to. And so if I was recommending stuff to Blizzard, I think I would take the unpopular opinion that if you are declaring intent as tank, you are only able to pick warriors. You are only able to pick warriors. You're not able to pick melee assassins into that role. You're not able to pick Deep's characters. You're not able to pick that. You'd say, like, we are establishing the meta. The very bare minimum of the meta is you at least have to pick something like an Artanis as a main tank.
Well, see, that would be even more restrictive than League, because what happens in League a lot is in chat, people agree to swap roles, too.
Yes, they can.
This is the original heart of my question I'm proposing here is, will they implement it in a fact where you're restricted of the heroes you can pick if you lock in a role?
I don't think they will, because I don't think they have the guts to do that, but I think they should. No, I think that's legitimately it. People would get upset. People who want to play Murky would get upset that it would get blocked off if you wanted to play like melee assassin. I think people would actually get upset because of it.
Well, another way to look at it too is with these queues, I know they talked about requirements for hero levels and amount of heroes unlocked at certain levels to be able to queue for this new combined ranked system. Would that come into effect? Say I choose that I want to be tank and support as my 2 primary and secondary options. Wouldn't they have to make sure I have enough heroes within those roles to activate those for my queue?
I imagine that's something they're working on. So like, Well, I imagine they probably have like it's like 8 or something. Okay, there has to be some like limit to say like the maximum amount that can get banned, which would be 6. Plus one for the enemy team and you. So maybe it would be like 8.
If it is indeed 8, and we're thinking of it in terms of Blizzard's going to want to make sure you have supports if you're locking in a support role, then doesn't that lend credence to the fact that maybe they're going to restrict you to only picking those heroes?
Yeah, it's possible.
It's possible, but I don't think they'll ever do it.
No, I don't. No.
Honestly, my big worry is how do you express your role if you are open to doing double support? I guess flex. Like how do you express your role if you want to offlane? And I don't know that Blizzard understands what the offlane actually is.
I'm worried about them introducing an option called flex, because that's going to be the de facto everyone picks it sort of thing.
And I hope those queue times go through the roof.
And if they don't pick it, it'll be their secondary option. I wouldn't imagine, like, let's say Ghost, you for example, you're going to put off lane as your first choice if that's a choice.
You can't, because it's roles, so it's
or whatever.
Support,
maybe
healer,
it's just bruiser.
assassin.
Like you'd pick probably melee assassin or bruiser. You're not going to pick anything else, right? And so when it gets to that where like you pick that system, and then what's your secondary going to be? It would be something like flex. You're not going to pick some support or like ranged role, would you?
I mean, I would if I didn't get my role and the roles were correct. Like I would put secondary flex as my secondary, because then I could just say, well, I'm playing the off lane, and you pick my Ever Kerrigan or something that's a melee, it's a bruiser. I don't know.
So I don't know if flex would work, because I think too many people would just have it chosen.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. My worry is that flex is so highly prioritized, and the queue times go through the roof for those people, that they just start saying, screw it, I'm going to select ranged assassin as my main, or like support, and I'm just going to pick Murky through there. Like in League, you have obstacles to that, to doing that, because you have like specific positions to go down, so you can't really, if you pick like a troll character and like say you pick some crazy thing and you're not supposed to be jungle, but you pick Smite and you take a character into the jungle, well, like you're just kind of competing with your jungle for resources, and in the end you're both going to be worse off. Whereas a player can just pick Murky and just go to any lane that they want and, be like that. So that's what I worry about.
So we're approaching an hour here talking about our AMA.
No, we got it. We have to do the call of the Nexus. We have to.
Well, here we go. Before we go, I want each person to pick one more thing to briefly discuss, and then we'll kind of segue over to our next topic, Ghost blog post. But one thing that's sticking out to me as a true collector in Heroes of the Storm, the gold to shard conversion. They talked a bit about it, I think, before the AMA, but they kind of talked a bit more during it. I'm super stoked for this. I think it's going to be great for collectors, great for people who aren't even collectors. Maybe you just want one skin. Maybe that new Delta Hanzo skin's your jam. You want it. You can just take some gold now, convert the shards, and unlock it right away. I think that's going to be awesome.
You will be able to.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
If it happens.
It's on the near-term list, so we're hoping very soon.
If it happens. Yeah, sure.
Jax, what's your pick on this list?
Oh my. Okay, I'll do one big one, and then like later on maybe I can say like 3, just like not whole questions, but like specific parts of their answers. But my big one would be Call of the Nexus. We discussed it previously. So a person talks about how you implement it in queue times and then you reverted it, and we still have long queues and the matchmaker is worse, and now we don't get a tank or healer. Hello, great question. It's so strange, because if you just spent like 3 sentences slagging off someone and what they've done, you wouldn't expect, oh, great question. So they
that's business for you.
Yeah. Match quality went up for the entire quick match population. Wow, seems like a really good thing. I'm glad they got rid of it. Large majority of the players did not experience a large increase in queue times. Also good. However, those that did experienced a very significant increase, and we have absolutely no spine, and we fear any criticism and any. Oh, that's not it. That was my notes.
Jax, you spent a whole bunch of time commending the League of Legends people for pulling something that people didn't like.
Yeah. But people liked Call of the Nexus. Most people liked Call of the Nexus.
I hated it. I hated
You hated having a tank and a support?
No, I didn't. I hated not getting it, even though that they said that we would. Like, what would happen? It would be like, expanding queue match.
It only expanded queue times after like 10 minutes.
It was a lot slower for me, especially when I was playing with someone like my dad.
I think what you're remembering was like after 2 weeks, they did the snap fix to lower the expanding like really low. Like the rules was it would not expand until 10 minutes. Like that was the rule. And they're saying right here is that a large percentage of the majority did not experience a large increase in queue times. So this isn't like what position ranks is for a league. Is like position ranks didn't work, so they pulled it because everyone didn't like it. This is a case of like most people liked it or most people didn't notice it, and it was a big increase for a few people, and some people who didn't like the increased queue times like got upset, and they reverted it completely. Since the community was asking for the matchmaker to ensure QM had better team compositions, we felt that it was a good trade-off. I wouldn't say these changes were a mistake, as it addressed what the community was currently reaching out to developers for. We are still... Then why did you remove it? Again, never a mention of why did you remove it. We are still planning to bring this back and are considering additional changes.
Personally, like having to wait 6, 7, 8 minutes for a quote quick match was absolutely unbearable.
That's a pretty good point. Why call it quick match? Just call it standard match, not quick match.
Think about how long a draft takes, and then think about how much better a game would be now that you have a healer and tank rather than I would trade a 6-7 minute wait time so that I don't have 5 specialists. I would. I know some people wouldn't. That's fine. And again, we have like there was a comment underneath this that I wanted to bring up specifically for you. Please don't bring that system back. The whole community is not on forums. The people that complain about unfair matches because they don't have a tank are a small, loud, vocal community. QM should be fast and random. It was makes it unique. You can be up against 5 assassin versus 5 assassin, or 1 healer and 4 assassins on both teams. That's what makes it interesting. Form standard under unranked draft. Doesn't make it a fair match. Yeah,
I think it's a real Sophie's choice. Like, do I want to sit here and wait forever and not play the game, or do I want to get through a game where maybe I get a decent comp, maybe I get a composition where, we win even though we don't have the tank and support that we need. But sometimes even with good comps, you end up with a garbage comp because they didn't give you any wave clear. Like, I have a tank and support, yes, but my tank is Garrosh, my support is Karazim, my assassin is Nova. Just go down the line of heroes with no wave clear, and you basically auto lose the game.
I mean, that's the small minority of times.
It is,
and it's no better than what we have right now, because that comp can still happen now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I feel like it doesn't prevent bad matches entirely.
It lessens it.
It does lessen it. And if there were enough people playing tank and support that I didn't have to wait for 6 minutes to play a quick match, if I didn't want to play tank or support, it would be fine. Like with League, like even if you play the least popular positions, you don't really have to wait very long to get a queue.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I wanted to bring up. Was there was a question that was like, what can we do for you? And one of the top things that the Blizzard developer said is play more healers and tanks if it's not your main already. It's like, cry for help. Okay, Ghost, you go. What's your one question?
Instead of like forcing people in with a system, why not just give extra bonuses? Like, we've already seen this. Like,
I'd take the opposite view. If you queue up as a specialist, you get like 10% experience.
You have to spend gold to queue up as Murky.
Yes, you have to spend. You have to spend gold to queue up as Murky.
Please.
I think that's a great way. You if you want to play Murky every game in QM, you don't get any loot boxes. Something like that.
Or wait. Maybe this is a elegant way to do it too, and you can do this for every hero. Every time you die in game, it reduces your post game rewards. So Murky dies so often, and he just gets no rewards.
Nisha dies, Lost Vikings die. Yep, no, absolutely.
Every time a Samuro clone dies.
I'm only half kidding about this, by the way. Ghost,
it would be really nice. I think we could get people to play tank if we gave them gold. Come on, Blizzard. Just
another thing they've said play tanks. They said play supports. That was in one message. In a separate message, I saw something saying go buy our skins and support our game in our shop.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that was from KO himself, and I was kind of like, ugh. It kind of made me feel bad because I'm someone who has bought a lot. Like I would be in that probably top 1% of people who've helped contribute to the shop in this game.
Yeah, same.
I don't like hearing that from KO if that's his intent of trying to save HOTS, is just buy stuff from our shop. Make a good, excuse my language, effing game, and we're going to come play it.
I mean, I think I would argue that they have. I mean, they've chipped away at it in recent days, but I mean, that's why we're making a hot dang old podcast about it. They made a good game.
Yeah, but I just don't want to hear from our game director.
Yeah.
Go buy our shop, because we will buy your shop if you have a game that we want to play. That's what makes us want to buy things. So I think it's kind of like you got to put one before the other, and just saying buy things without really reason. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'm optimistic that some stuff's going to happen, and they're really working towards some positive change, which hopefully was what they wanted to get across during this AMA. I'm just excited to see it finally get to us.
We got to give Ghost his question. We had our questions, Murda, but we didn't give Ghost his question. What's your one thing that you want to do?
I'll just go through it real quick. My one thing on here would be that they are looking at a, quote, blind pick / light draft for QM maybe in the future. Long-awaited way, and I think light pick would basically be like what Jax and I have always wanted from Quick Match, which is, hey, here's the team composition, here's the map we're going to. Do you want to change? Because 50% of the time, the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
We had this talk in our post-BlizzCon episode, I believe, where we talked about this, and you actually stopped at your charity dinner and had a talk about this with one of the devs, right?
Oh, KO himself came up to me and goes, hey, you're a fan of the game. What do you think of the state of the game? My first words were, Quick Match has to go. And Reddit crucified me for it, but I think this blind pick light draft thing is exactly what I was talking about, because I told him, like, sometimes you end up with a shies comp, and
that's going to be really hard to edit out.
And like I'm like, okay, I will absolutely change immediately. Like, I've been spamming Samuro and Quick Match because it's a lot of fun and I love doing it. But if I end up in a composition where it's like we have no support, I'm like, okay, I'm hopping on Ana or Rhaegar or whatever.
And give the incentive for the player to switch. Say, like, first person to switch to healer gets 200% experience boost.
Ooh, I like that. There's like a bounty.
Oh,
yeah.
Whoa.
That's on the maybe if we're lucky, and the heat death of the universe doesn't happen first. So
they said it. They said it, and
they said it.
And all I have
child.
Right now is hope. I'm running on fumes of hope at this point, and if they're gonna, keep me going like this, I will be a mark for them.
Welcome back after that pretty lengthy discussion regarding the AMA. A lot of good stuff. Some thoughts, and we'll see how it goes.
Longer than we expected.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'll cut it out so they won't have to know how long that was. Only we have to know how long that went.
37 hours.
Yes. Moving on. Kind of want to talk a little bit about, and I thought we could wrap this into the AMA because our own Ghostdunk published an article over on Hearthstone, or not Hearthstone, Heroes Hearth. It's the morning. Heroes Hearth regarding the XP changes, MMR, matchmaking, etc. So pull that up if you haven't already, because we're going to be going over it. Ghostdunk, give us your, and I say here, what is the thesis here? What is the overarching thesis, and how do you go about not proving it because you can't prove a theory, but how do you go about trying to add evidence to it?
Right. There's a lot of different points to be made. If I had to sum it up into one single thesis, it was, here are the results of the changes after the 2017 BlizzCon patch, which I call the ammo patch just because it's the most memorable change, but they made a lot of different changes there. They changed how much damage minions do to structures. They changed how camps work. They changed all sorts of stuff about the game. They removed extra towers near forts and so on. And then after those changes, they also made the XP changes. And I started this research trying to look at what was the real difference between before and after the XP changes. And then I realized I had data from changes way back when. So I put it through a bunch of different things. And I was really looking at 3 different areas. The first was level difference at the end of games, because the Blizzard team said that they were worried about stomps, and people were complaining about how stompy the game was. And it's like, we're down by 5 levels. This sucks, etc. The second thing was MMR, because people talk about, matchmaking sucks. MMR, Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing with the matchmaking, and we're getting rainbow matches, and we're getting, games where I'm with players that are no good, and etc. And then the final one was something that I came up with was, after the XP changes came in, I feel like the game has very little to do with the actions you take. Like, the game just kind of coasts until the end game, at which point somebody wins a team fight, and then you go on and win the game. So, you saw a lot of people complaining about matches where it's like, all our keeps are down. It's like 16-3 in terms of kills, and it's 21-20. And these are higher level players, not just playing with people that don't know how to end the video game. So I try to look at how much of an impact what you did in the game had, and I try to do it with the limited data that I had. So that's it's. You tried to give me down to a thesis, and I talked for a really long time. So basically, it's MMR, level difference, and statistics.
I thought statistically at the tail end of the blog post, you start talking about these confusion matrix and the ROC curves, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
So there was one on here where you took a look at the MMR system, the matchmaking system rather, and how good it does making games.
Right.
And what you determined is that before the match takes place, your machine learning predictions were kicking in, and it had close to, I think, like a 96 or 94 precision rate. Is that correct?
It's not looking at MMR there. So the 94, the 99%, 93%, etc. That's all based on stats that happened after the game. So that's based on how much XP you had, how many kills there were, how much time dead the enemy spent compared to your other enemy, how much siege damage you did, how much hero damage you did, etc.
But then you go on to predict, after the MMR movement happened at the end of the game, if the system was able to predict with those new MMR calculations which team would win. Is that correct? Well, was I reading that part right?
Yeah, no, it was. I must have not have put that clearly. Basically, the first one I did is I looked at how much MMR can determine a winner. So if
yes,
you're going through hot slogs and you look at everyone's MMR and nothing else, can you pick who the winner is? And even if you're really good at it, and the computer tends to be pretty good at picking stuff that has actual, correlation. So if you go through and you look at the MMR from each team, and that's the only thing you're looking at, you do a really bad job of picking with the team that wins.
That's how I meant to describe this, and I totally described it backwards. But yes, before you were trying to say in your article that the system could barely determine who they think was going to win because the matchmaker did such a good job of making this 50-50 scenario with the teams.
Yeah, that was my argument, is that if you look at Hotslog MMR, like, you can see a lot of variation. You can see a lot of, like, oh, these matches were lopsided. This team has, 200 more MMR than the other team. But when you look at how it actually predicts matches, the machine did a really bad job of it. And in fact, it did, like, so bad that if you just throw MMR in there, what it would do is it found that it had the most success picking team number 2 out of, if you have team number 1 and 2, and then just barely occasionally picking team number 1. And when it did that, it had basically had an error rate of 0.49, so it was able to do it 51% of the time.
Wow. And then, so when you further extrapolated that, looking at the MMR changes after the game concluded, the system had a very
no. So the after the game concluded, we have no value. We have no way of telling how much the MMR changed after that. That was not in my data
doesn't
at all.
Hotslogs track that though, right?
It does, but when it releases the data dump, releases the data dump, it doesn't say how much each player's MMR has increased or decreased. So what I was looking at was just the statistics in the game of what happened. And so you saw, like, the prediction rate jump to like 98, 99% of being able to look at stuff. And so if you just look at stats, you can predict the outcome of almost any game. And that's something you would expect, right?
I would hope so. Because like you said, in the event, it's 16-3 in kills. All the structures are down and the team level is still 21-20. Hopefully the system can tell, like, hey, these guys are kicking the other team's butts. They're going to win. Yeah.
And, like, if you look at the end of it, it's like, oh, this team had way more kills. Well, it's because they got a team wipe on their way to the core when they finished it. Or this team had a whole bunch of XP. In the pre-XP changes, it was because you killed all the keeps. And you got all the XP from that. So now the point of this was how much can you tell based off the statistics. And my theory was that when you look at the XP changes, you would be able to tell less, because you had those moments where a team was just whooping butt. They weren't able to finish the game, though, and because of the XP changes, they're on the same talent tier, and the team that was losing can get it together with one more team fight and then just win the game. And I found that generally to be true. So what I'm trying to say is that because, like, the statistics in my mind are really the only thing that matter in the game. Like, they matter in terms of that when you play the game, everything that you do contributes towards these statistics. XP is the only resource in the game. Time dead means that there's stuff that you couldn't do on the map. Kills lead to time dead. And then siege damage, hero damage, and healing, they express what you're actually doing, trying to get kills, taking down these forts. And I found that post XP changes, that if you looked at statistics, you were not able to predict the winner of the match as well. And this to me says that anything you do in the game that has an effect on statistics is not as important as it once was. Now,
and so you label these as variable importances in your article, and they go from a scale from 0% all the way up to 100%.
Yeah, so that's sort of scaled. Yeah.
Okay, so stats like healing, self-healing, hero damage, siege damage, your analysis here shows these stats are almost completely meaningless.
Yes, that's very true. And, like, what happens is that the system, it goes through and it uses these hundreds of thousands of games to build a model. And when you look at the model that does the best, those numbers are almost not even considered.
That's staggering to think how often you're in a game and you're throwing out big heal numbers and you say, oh, I'm not doing my job, look at my heal numbers. Yeah. It has nothing to do with if you're going to win the game or not based on this analysis here.
Yeah, the only thing that hero damage and healing numbers prove is that you're hitting buttons and you're not, like, AFKing or something like that. So like if you came to me and I was trying to win a contest and you say, here's the stats for this game, predict a winner, I would be like, okay, throw away the hero damage and healing and siege damage numbers because I don't care. Just show me the XP and how long everybody was dead. Yeah. So, and like the real issue for me is the ROC curve. So basically the ROC curve is like, it's a really good measure of how good guesses are. So the closer to 1 it is, the better. So we look at, and I restricted everything to close games and tried to see like, okay, if a game is super close within 1 level, can the computer still figure out which team won? And guess what? It could. And XP, surprisingly, was still the most important factor by far in guessing whether a close game won or lost.
If I could move on to my questions and
absolutely,
comments.
Please.
Okay. So just going through, I had some thoughts. I read this. I thought it was really excellent. But I did have some questions and concerns, and I'll raise them here. So starting off at the very top, is the drop in games uploaded because less people are playing or less people are uploading? Because it would seem from the draft mode perspective, I mean, that's where you would expect the biggest drop-off to happen, but it isn't. So it looks more like either a lot of QM people have stopped playing or a lot of QM people have stopped uploading.
I mean, I think it's a combination of all of those things. My guess is that the draft mode is the most accurate representation of the player reduction since 2017. We barely saw any change from 2017 to 2018. And then after that, I think you really saw a big drop off after, which is at post Brack letter.
Okay. Moving on. This next question, is it fair to compare the game now to what it was 2 years ago? So you make the big part of your initial point is that the game would be better if you just reverted changes back to before the ammo patch, because games were, we'll get into it, but arguably as even, if not more so, than they are now post the changes.
Yeah, what I'm basing this off on is level differences, and so I'm like looking at how many stomps there were, basically. And so, yeah, if you look at, quick match, which is the most, if you look at draft nodes rather, in 2017, there, you had a lot of games that were within 1-0 or 1 level of between each other. And in fact, that was what the XP changes were supposed to fix. And they did, but they didn't actually do that as well, in my opinion, as in 2017. In the game back in 2017, you had more games where it was like 4-level leads, 5-level leads, etc. Like if you look at, post XP changes, like even at middling MMRs, you didn't have nearly as many 4-level leads and greater. But I would argue that you kind of want to have a few of those. You don't, if you have in like 2017, if you have 8% of your games are stomps, I think that's fair. I think that 8% of games are stomps. And if a team is way better than another team, if they're pulling it off better, if their comp is better, then, you kind of deserve to get stomped, especially if you don't stop feeding, which, the way to get back in HOTS before the XP changes was to stop fighting and just soak. And you would always be able to stay within 2 levels of your opponent if you did that.
But
I know your point. I wanted to, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to preface my answer because you're really asking about, is it fair to compare the game to 2 years ago? Right?
Because of all of the changes that have happened. We've had 20, 30 new heroes. We've had a lot of meta changes. We've had a lot of battleground changes. Is it fair to compare it, or is it an apples to oranges comparison in terms of, well, yeah, maybe it was because of the ammo changes and the minion changes that they did, but you know what? There were a lot of other minion changes that happened afterwards. So it's not, if you were to say, if you were to convince KO to completely revert every change back to what it was before the ammo changes, it's not necessarily a guarantee that these numbers would maintain, would stay the way they are, or they were, because of all of the other changes that have happened since then.
Well, I would say, what are the changes that you're talking about? And I think that there are some changes that are just far more widespread and impactful than others. So changes like minion damage, ammo, XP changes, all these sort of things, I think have a far bigger impact on the game looking at this level compared to things like hero balance.
Yes, there it is. Okay, I see it. So changes that have happened since then. Regen Globe changes. Volskaya Foundry has been buffed and nerfed and buffed and nerfed as much as you can. Voice chat has been added, something that you might not have considered. Sappers on Towers of Doom and Haunted Mines have been changed multiple times. Numerous heroic reworks. Sylvanas no longer disable structures. That might have an effect on stomping games. Warhead Junction boss got reworked. We've had new heroes. Warhead Junction nuke bonus damage has been reduced, so you no longer could just immediately smash through the forts and end the game at 14 minutes. Structures outer tower experience distributed to other structures. Baseline armor got removed. Alterac Pass got introduced. A lot of reworks. Alterac Pass got changes to it. Third band got entered. Mercenary changes went through so that you can't heal them and whatnot. Support abilities no longer work on minions and mercenaries. QM changes went through, and now these most recently XP changes. So my point is that so many of these changes were built off of the 2017 ammo patch changes, and they all have individual effects that can't be simply measured. Maybe a lot of the changes are small. How does one Brightwing rework affect it? But add it all together, it actually does matter. And I think trying to compare the two without simply saying like this is just for a hypothetical example, like the game has not gotten more balanced over the time. It used to be as balanced. But the main point that I take issue with is in your question to the Blizzard developers, you specifically ask, can we revert the changes back to 2017, or has there been any talk about that? And I think that's kind of missing the point that you can't do that without all of these changes being somewhat affected.
Well, I mean, so reverting back to 2017, of course, it's like, oh, you have to take these other heroes and you have to take them out of the game to get exactly the kind of experience that you did it, that,
the heroes, the reworks, the map reworks, the map changes,
right.
The mercenary changes, everything.
I would argue that my question to Blizzard was, do you guys feel comfortable about going back to old ideas, was really the point of my question to the developers. Because I did this research, and other than, going back to old ideas, I don't know what else to draw from this as far as like action items. We can say that the game has, they tried to improve stomps in the XP changes, but they did so, but they didn't do it as good as it was in 2017. Maybe.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, my question is that leads me into my next question. So, I mean, the stomps have been reduced. Is that not a success? It's been reduced. Maybe they felt like the level of stompitude back in 2017 is just what they wanted, and so they made the change, and now it's pretty much in line with what was happening in 2017. It was an improvement over what happened last year, given all of the changes.
Well, I would argue that they didn't do as good of a job.
I would argue that they did, and that leads me into my next question, which is, if you take a look at and this is the XP changes made games more even, but not quite as good as they used to be. The two categories I want to, or three actually, is less than 0, 0, and 1. It's close enough that it really doesn't even make a difference in terms of win rate. If you add them up, the 2018 changes and the 2017 is practically even. You add up the 2017 data, 14.5 and 26.7, you get to 31.2 2. You add it up for nowadays 12.2 and 28.1, you get to 30.3. You're 0.9 off, which I would argue is within the margin of error considering Hot Slug's accuracy rates. So it's practically, you can't say that it's statistically significant that games used to be less stompy. I think I think the evidence is, I think you can clearly see a drop from before the XP changes to afterwards, but I don't think you can deliberately say that this 1 or 2% increase is meaningful to say that the old system was better. I think you have to say that it's within the margin of error that these two systems are pretty much equal.
Well, okay, so I think that it was fairly close, but my part of the reasoning that I say that it was better in 2017 is if we now look at the MMR band split, we see that a lot of the quality of these matches and level leads have been at higher MMRs.
Which leads me into my next problem.
Well, right. Hold on.
But no, it is important because your MMR brackets are set up nominally. They're not set up percentage-wise. So the 1500 to 1800 bracket, you make it seem like it's even with all the others, but in fact it's not. The people who are greater than 3000, they make up like 0.5% of the population, whereas the people from 1800 to 2100 are like 10 to 12%. This isn't necessarily a question, but it's more of just a constructive criticism of like, it doesn't really show accurately how it affects the majority of people, because you're acting like it is like each one of these is perfectly a seventh of the population, which it really isn't. So you can't really draw conclusions from it unless you separate it out percentage-wise, not nominally. Like
I wouldn't say that, because I think that the previous graphs are a combination of every of everybody at the same time. And,
which again showed that if you take the top three, that they're pretty much equal within the margin of error.
Right. So, but what I'm trying to point out with the MMR differences is that when you see in the post XP changes that all of a sudden when you get down to the least skilled people, even if they're and I'd have to pull up my data, which I don't have right now, to see what percentage of players are at these MMR brackets. But like you look at 1500 to 1800 and it's and then below that you start dipping below and you start seeing a lot more of these quote unquote bad games. And it's I would argue that Blizzard was trying to make this work for everybody, but especially the casual player who doesn't really know what's going on, who feels bad that their fort got killed and they can't catch up. I would argue that these changes are not working for everybody. I would say that they're working for some people and maybe the majority of people, but it's not working for everybody. Whereas if you look at a draft mode from 2017, that was working, I think, for everybody.
Okay, well, I mean, we can look at the fact that if you compare the top echelon, we can take the reverse. So I will agree. If you look at the under 1500, the 2017 numbers look moderately better than the 2019. I'll call them the 2019 numbers, just the 2017, 2018, 2019, just to be even. You see 8.68 to 25, so that'll be just about 33, whereas before it was closer to 37. That is a significant difference. But you can also look at the top echelon. You say that it doesn't, the 2017 used to work for everybody. Well, by these graphics, no, it kind of didn't. The 2019 changes are much better. You look at the level of the number of was that 4 level leads, the farthest right bracket.
Right.
Right now for the 3000 greater brackets, 3.5. Back in 2017, it was double that, 7.71.
Yeah, well, I think that number is pulling. You look at it, it's mostly pulling from things like 2 level leads and 3 level leads. So as you know, there are just as many. There are just as many. I would say there are more close games in the 2017 patch, but once you start getting into level differences, you start seeing a lot more variation in things like that. And if they were looking to completely eliminate, like, if their goal is to say no stomps, we don't want any more 4-level leads or anything like that, I would say they succeeded. I would say they would succeed in no 4 or 5 level loss games. But I would say also that they didn't do as good of a job in what their goal should be, which is to make sure that games are closer and games. Well,
the games are closer. Yeah, because if they're not 4-level leads, they're obviously they're either 3-level leads or they're 2-level leads.
That there are more close games, I think. And
so you're valuing 0 and 1 levels as much more important than 2 to 3 levels. It's an improvement, but it's not where you should be going. No, that's a valid complaint, but it does kind of go counter to what we were saying earlier, in that the biggest criticism of the XP changes is how many close games there are. You see that your example earlier was all of the keeps are down. You have like 20 kills to 3, and it's a 21-20 game.
Right,
so that is a 1-level lead.
Which is why I think you need the whole paper, because when you look at when you look at this and you say, okay, well, the argument is, well, now games are too close. It's like, well, why are they so close? I would say in 2017 that there were more close games, and those close games were because teams were actually performing at the same level. And I would argue that post XP changes, that any improvement you got in a team in games being closer and there not being any stomps comes at the expense of not rewarding players for playing well.
That is a valid criticism, and I think Blizzard would take the perspective that yes, it does lessen the impact of each individual player, but it makes it so that overall the experience is more even.
And another point I want to bring up, and I think Cavalier Guest is going to talk about this in his article he's working on. I want to point out that I did a lot of these changes at Cavalier. Not changes. I looked at a lot of this data because Cavalier Guest suggested I do so. And the whole reason I started investigating this is because he wanted to write about pre and post XP changes. And one of the things he brought up is that pre XP change, if you were losing, you could play correctly and in a way that wasn't difficult, in a way that would allow you to maintain within a 2-level lead. That was always his metric. If you would play so that if you never took a fight down a talent tier, if you would soak instead of trying to contest things that you would lose in fights, if you would always be able to maintain a 2-level lead distance.
And this data clearly says that in half of games under a 1500 level, people were not doing it. People did not know
I know,
to do
exactly. And they didn't know. And I think a big part of it is that, looking at pre-XP game changes in Quick Match, even half of games at the highest MMR brackets, people didn't understand this. Not half, sorry, like 20, it was like 30% of games, people didn't understand that this was happening. And so I think, his point is going to be that no one knew how to play this game.
And so the solution, I think we would all say the ideal solution would be that Blizzard should invest more in educational stuff to make it so that people understand what to do when you are down. And I think Blizzard looked at that and said that was not viable. It wasn't. They weren't able to do that. And so they took the next best thing, which is to make the change for them. Say it's not necessary that you have to soak perfectly to stay 2 levels within your opponents. Now we do that for you so you can focus on other stuff.
So you can focus on the one thing. So basically, we took away strategy from you so that you can play the game like an ARAM is how I view it. Like, the XP changes because of this. That takes away an element of strategy from the video game in order to make people that didn't understand it feel better about playing the game. And I think that took away from Heroes of the Storm as a game that people got passionate about and people like started, making teams about.
So you make this point and about matchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull it up so I know exactly what you said. And you say matchmaking is actually pretty good. That's the main crux of the argument. And you go, matchmaking is pretty good because the odds that the game will be 50-50 is actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I would say Blizzard, especially in draft games, it has some of the best matchmaking in terms of making sure that each team has a 50-50 chance of winning.
Right.
Smurfs aside, again, you can't really account for that. I would agree with that. But I think you're misunderstanding what people are saying when they are complaining about matchmaking. So I don't think people are complaining when it comes to matchmaking that they can't win. I don't think people say that. I think people sometimes say that they're stuck in MMR hell, and I think that's frustrating for people. And maybe that is a problem with their MMR. Maybe it is just a case of they're not that good or they're not able to carry on the characters that they've picked. But when they're saying, most of the time, my experience with people saying matchmaking is bad, I guess it would be more charitable to say team making is bad. It is not the physical act of putting two teams against each other that is creating a 50-50 chance. It is the matchmakers that is putting together like 5-man teams that is the bad part.
I mean, okay, well, one, I think the only place I actually disagree with you is that when people complain about matchmaking, they're complaining about having to play with players that are a different skill level with them on their team. So like
this is a perceived skill level, though.
Yeah, no. Like people say, "Oh, I can't believe I'm matched with this guy. This guy sucks. And I don't want to have to play with them. I don't have to deal with them." And I would say that a lot of arguments are like that, but I do think that there are a class of arguments that you see, especially on Reddit, of I can't climb because the matchmaker keeps matching me with bad players. Like that's BS.
Well, matching you with bad players, that is possible. That is possible.
No, I know. But I would say that yes, you do get matched with bad players, but no, it does not stop you from winning your game.
No, it does not stop you from winning your game. And you make the point that it's fair, not necessarily fun, and I agree that is probably the most charitable explanation. But I think we do need to start couching these things in terms of matchmaking being the physical act of putting two teams together and wanting to make a 50-50 odds, and team making, which I would argue the goal of team making is, let me pull this up because I actually wrote it down. The goal of team making is that the overall level of the game is too low or high, and the variance of players is no good. And so I'll tell you why. So we look at matchmaking. This is from my own experience. I compiled this data. I got my own data.
Right.
If we look at the match variance, this is the difference between each team. On average, the difference is 105 MMR points. If we average both teams and we compare them, 105 points. I would argue that is very good. That is excellent. And going further into it, the variance, or the standard deviation, 68 MMR. So a majority, or 68%, if we assume this is a normal distribution, 136 MMR range is what 68% of teams are going to, or matches are going to fall on. I think that's fantastic. So that is a compliment for the matchmaker. Here's where the team maker comes in. The average MMR range for a person like me, who is a low master player, the average MMR range from the lowest player on both teams to the highest member is 1,023 points. This is the average. In about half of games, it's larger than that. So, what is the standard deviation on that? 348. And so you multiply that by 2, that's a 700-point variance. So, it is very likely that the majority of games are occurring between 700 MMR points and 1300 MMR points in terms of range. That is unacceptable. That is an abomination. That's essentially gold people playing with grandmasters, and this is the average.
What is your MMR, by the way?
My MMR right now?
Yeah.
I'd have to check. I'm guessing it's probably about 3150.
3150. So,
my average when I was doing these calculations, 3080. That's my average then.
Yeah. So I would say you're probably correct that there are games with a huge swing.
The majority of games.
Oh yeah, I would say there's
majority of vast
absolutely
majority of games.
I would totally agree with you. I will say that in some cases, because you're drawing from your own games, which is a much smaller sample pool than if you looked at everybody with MMR at your range, that some of the games are against people who are not ranked or who don't have any games uploaded to Hot Dogs, or maybe have like 2 or 3, in which case they'll be defaulted to 1600. So the right there is a 1500 difference. But that is just a slight thing, and I'm almost certain that you have had games with people who are truly at 1200 MMR. I believe it. I believe that you get paired with golds, and I believe that it happens.
Yeah, and so that is, I think, what most people are talking about when they say that matchmaking is bad. I really do feel that.
By most, I would agree with you, and if you're talking about streamers. If you're talking about people who are big in the community, grandmasters and people like that who have a large voice in community like that. But if you're on Reddit, I think there's another class of people, a ton of them, that are like plat and like, I can't climb because of matchmaking. I keep getting paired with bad people and I can't win.
Well, that's just about all the questions and concerns I had, and we'll see if Blizzard ever responds to this. I know you posted this question as an AMA. And they did get a response in terms of they're going to reach back on us shortly. That was about a week ago. Yep. So,
and I want to shout out Stas, who is he's still the technical director, I'm told, of Heroes of the Storm. I talked to him at BlizzCon charity dinner, and he went on about like statistics. Apparently he's done his own statistics on Blizzard data, and that like enabled him to find bugs that otherwise would not have been found. And so he's really into this sort of thing. So I'm really excited to see what kind of criticisms they have, and if they're going to give it to me as hard as Jax just did.
Jax, you laid it on thick, man. I think I was quiet for about 30 minutes. I was like, I got to give Jax a little bit of space here to operate. Just, if you're a viewer at home, like, I was here the whole time. I was just letting Jax do his thing there.
Well, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Murda, I know you got to get out of here. So yeah. So why don't you send us off? We'll touch back if Blizzard ever does mention that response, and that would be interesting to see.
So if you want to be a supporter of our podcast here, Nexus Now, hop on over to Patreon and support Nexus Gaming Series at patreon.com/Heroes Nexus Gaming Series. So many awesome ways for you to give back to the community, and a few ways for NGS to give back in return if you want to be a patron. If you want to find me, I'm over on Twitter at MurdaRG. Of course, on Twitch, the same. MurdaRG is my tag there, so look for me. A lot of NGS action coming to you. Ghost, where can they find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Ghostdunk, where I will be doing some casting and streaming, etc. I will also be casting every Thursday night on the Thursday Night Showdown, twitch.tv/Nexus Gaming Series. Yes. Why did I think that was different? Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/illuminatedwax. And I'm on Heroes Hearth too at Ghostdunk.
And Jaxter37. You can get me on twitter.com/Jaxter37. You can DM me on Discord. I'm My DMs are always open if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to berate me for being mean to Ghost. That's fine too. I think with that, I think we're all done.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Hopefully we get to give you even more of this special update here. If we get a response from Blizz.
Excited. Yeah, we're going to be back with more stuff. And real quick, a special supplemental shout out to my supplemental man, Smithel. Just a real quick supplemental note for you. Hey, baby, I love you.